Well, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. And before we start, let's have a word of prayer. Father God in heaven, thank you so much for the blessings that you've given us. As we learn a little bit more about our health and that you want us to be healthy, as the scripture says so, we pray that the Holy Spirit will guide our thoughts and my tongue this day. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. The program today is a little bit different than what I normally do because first of all, for over 14 years, I was in cardiovascular meds where we actually dealt with high blood pressure. And of course, you know, a doctor, you think you know everything, right? No, you don't. And we're learning all the time. And then I began to learn a lot more after I turned 63, went to the hospital and had high blood pressure. And all that time we'd worked with it, you know, and so, you know, and then trying to practice some things, there was a lot of things that we didn't know at that time. There's a lot of hereditary type propensities for high blood pressure that we were not aware of back in those days. I started in the 60s in it when the meds were just becoming more available. And before that, there wasn't too many drugs for high blood pressure. But even then, with the American Heart Association, we were calling it the silent killer. And why is it a silent killer? It's because you really don't know you got high blood pressure until sometimes you had a stroke or a heart attack and the doctor says you got high blood pressure. So it's good to have it checked. And that's one of the reasons why that we're at the fairgrounds, you know, where we are checking blood pressures to make people aware of it. And we have discovered, in fact, there are people that have come that did not know they had high blood pressure, and some of them were very high. Sent them to their doctor. And this is the reason why these screening programs can be very important. But I'm glad that you're all here, and we've got some visitors today that we've met at the fairgrounds for, Sean, how long ago? 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years. Welcome. And these lovely people here, off and on, they've come and had their blood pressure checked at the fairgrounds. We're just so glad you're here. We really appreciate it very much. This presentation is, like I said, it's kind of different. It's based upon this book. It's a recent publication by Dr. David DeRose. Now, Dr. DeRose is an MD. He is a board-certified internist, and he also has several other degrees, including a master's in public health, which I also have. And it's interesting to what he is bringing out, and he's talking about 30 days to naturally controlling your blood pressure. And, you know, even I, being a naturopathic doctor, I have had trouble getting people to subscribe to a good regimen to get control of this blood pressure. And I'm going to share something else with you. He'll say it in the videos here, because we're going to present 3 short videos of his. A lot of you here have high blood pressure and don't even know it. You think, oh, well, wait, now my blood pressure is 140/80, right? That is very high. But that's what we used to say, that was normal, right? It's not normal anymore. And it's actually, as we get older, our pressures go up. Well, does that mean that we're going to be more subject to getting strokes and heart attack? And the answer is yes. And so what you do now, right now, I mean, you're all here, you're seemingly healthy. What you can start today is based upon some of the knowledge you're going to have today, and then if you do have high blood pressure, I suggest strongly, they have this one on Amazon that you can download on your computer for like, I don't know, $8, $10, something like that. So it's no excuse. This is a good book, and I tell you what, I am impressed that he put this much effort, he and his team, on treating individuals with high blood pressure. Let me go through a few things with you about hypertension. Now, these are the numbers that they're coming out with now. Can you see those okay? Maybe we ought to shut these curtains over here. 90 This is systolic, that's the number on top. And the diastolic is the number on the bottom, 90 over 60. How many of you here have a blood pressure of 90 over 60? Let's see your hands. 1, 1, 1. Okay. Well, they are considering that hypotensive. So I'll talk to you later, but bringing your pressure up a little bit. Hey, all right, I got it. Systolic of 91 to 119 over 61 to 79. How many of you have that kind of blood pressure? 1, 2. Oh. 120 or 129 over 80 or below 80. Below 80. Below 80. Got 3. 4? You. I got to see you. Okay. Good. Okay. 130 over 80? 139 over 89? You're hypertensive. Did you know that? Okay, good. Unfortunately. That's stage 1. Stage 2, 140 over on top, a little higher, and 90. And I'm not having anybody else raise their hands. Okay. But just for curiosity's sake, are there any in here that have a systolic over 180 and a higher than 120 on the diastolic? Let's see your hands. I'm the only one. I'm malignant hypertensive, folks, and it is hereditary, and I did not know it until I had my genes checked and found out what it was. But with medication and on a diet, my blood pressure runs right at 117 over 69 right now. And that's what it's running. And I make sure, folks, I check my blood pressure 3 times a day because I do not want to have a stroke, because my dad had a heart attack, and I had uncles, I had aunts, and I had on both sides of the family that some died with heart attacks, some had strokes. So it's in the family. So I have to be real, real careful of this. And each of you, again, like I said, if you're from stage 1 on up, be very careful. Because people within in this group right here, they're subject just as much as the ones with a higher pressure, even under control. So there you're going to find out something else too. With medicines, if you try to reduce your blood pressure just with medicines alone, it's not a good thing. Because guess what they found? That people are taking antihypertensives, keeping their blood pressure, say, within this range, or this range, their percentage chances of getting stroke and heart trouble are the same. So you have to do it with lifestyle changes. So we're going to talk about that, all right? Okay. We don't know really what causes high blood pressure. I mean, doctors are real smart with saying, well, it's because you eat too much salt and you have water retention, or you have vasoconstriction, or you have kidney situations, et cetera, but it's a multifaceted problem. So no one really knows the exact cause for each individual. And that's the reason why that there's something in the neighborhood of, I think, 400, is it, or 500 drugs that are on the market with different brands of the ones on the market today for treating it. When it started out, we had 6 to control blood pressure. So it must be a pretty lucrative business. You'll see the statistics. But some of these causes are, things that can exacerbate your problem are, of course, the overweight or obesity, lack of physical activity. In fact, we're finding that most people, they start exercising, their pressure comes down. Sometimes 10, 20 points on top, and sometimes 5 to 10 points on the bottom just by exercising alone. It's important, really, very important. Improper diet. When I say improper diet, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that, and he does too, is the fact that processed foods, people with hypertension, do you realize should not eat red meat at all? Did anybody know that? No pork, no red meat, very little fish, very little chicken. Why? It's because of the way that they are producing this stuff now. And the hormones and what have you interfere with the functionality of a recovery. And so it's best to be on a vegetarian diet or even a vegan diet in a situation, especially if you've got stage 2 up of high blood pressure. Too much salt in the diet. We are inundated. If you're eating any processed foods at all, you need to read the can or read the box, read the bag of chips. Just see how much salt you're getting. And David is going to go over a little bit of that too today. Stress is another factor. And as we get older, because our vessels sometimes get a little stiffer, a little harder, that's when your pressure starts going up. Okay, genetics plays a role. Now, I put that at the bottom, smoking at the bottom actually, because nobody in here smokes, right? Right. Genetics plays about 5 to 7% of the overall picture of this, but it's very important. He'll go over that, and it's actually in the book too, on some of the things that happen with genetics with an individual that you may not even know about, and that may be the reason why you might have high blood pressure. This is kind of an interesting map. What areas, you can't read that, can you? Okay, I'm going to read it for you. See this area right here? Do you think that's the area that has the highest blood pressure? Yep. Why do you think that is? What? Fried food? Comfort food. And the highest level of obesity in the world. Right there. Okay? But don't get too comfortable because all these have these same numbers somewhere. These are the hard numbers, folks. Okay, this was basically from the American Heart Association at the middle of 2019. 1 million people will have a heart attack or die from coronary artery disease or coronary disease this year. 16.5 million Americans aged 20 and older are living right now with coronary heart disease. That's a lot of folks. And just exacerbate that with a little high blood pressure, a little diabetes, and just guess what? It's a disaster looking for a place to have. And by the way, I want to bow my head and pray. I just, if I choke up, I'm sorry. Did you hear about the 5 kids that got killed up on the interstate? It's touching home. Some people we know, their kid was killed. Richard, would you pray for that those families for me?
Father in heaven, I'm so thankful that you are with us even in the fiery furnace. Lord, we just pray for your peace, your presence, be with that family, who lost loved ones. I don't know the details of what happened, but you do. And we know that it all points to the fact that you're coming soon to take us all home. There is no more tears shed. And he will continue to save us throughout the joy. We look forward to that day. And while we're still here, Lord, help us each to have that joy, that connection with you. Even though we may go through tough times, we can follow the meeting was over. He went up to Dr. Coop and he said, hey, I'm not Frank Palambos, so I know that name. Full of joy, even amidst the challenges we face. So we pray especially in this family and others.
Thank you, Richard. They were a church group going to Disney, and a truck went across the median up there in Gainesville and hit them. Hit another semi, and both the drivers died immediately, and 9 children, 5 of them died instantly, and the other ones, their lives are on a thread right now in the hospital. So continue praying for them. The 15% of the American populace is still smoking. That was in 2015. But 23 million adults in this country have diabetes. And like I said, with the one down at the bottom, on your right there, 38% adults are obese. This is the reason why the healthcare industry is in the shape that it's in today, is because we're not taking care of ourselves. So I think that's the reason why that MDs all over this country are beginning to change their philosophy. It used to be years ago when I taught doctors medicine and how to treat hypertension, we talked about stair-stepping the meds up. And basically it was this way. We told a person that you put a patient on diuretics first. And usually they were thiazide diuretics, which wasted potassium. But as they reduced their blood pressure with these diuretics, all of a sudden the body went into a compensatory mechanism and it begins to constrict the vessels and the pressure went back up. Then you had to put them on another med, usually a vasodilator. Today, that's the reason why they've got beta blockers, calcium channel blockers. They've got ACE inhibitors, which we'll talk about a little bit here, and they've got calcium channel blockers. And just all of these different things, you know, because it is a multifaceted problem, because people aren't taking care of themselves, so the doctors. And by the way, I'm glad we've got antihypertensives. I really am. I may not preach drugs like I used to, but I'm telling you, it's a good thing we've got them just to keep the numbers down, because we would have a lot more stroke and a lot more heart attacks in this country if we didn't have them, folks. Ready?
Watching the Wellness
This
Hour,
is the
news
first
that
video.
makes you healthier. I'm Randy Alvarez. Today's topic, reversing high blood pressure in just 30 days, naturally. With us, we have the author of 30 Days to Natural Blood Pressure Control, the No Pressure Solution, Dr. David DeRose. Dr. DeRose, welcome to the program.
Great to be with you, Randy.
So, beginning, I guess, with blood pressure, how big of a problem is it? And how much should we be worried about it when we have high blood pressure?
Randy, it's a huge problem. 1 billion people on our planet have high blood pressure.
Okay.
And the thing is, many of the people with dangerous blood pressure values don't even realize it.
Okay, so like what are symptoms, other than putting that cuff on and looking at the numbers?
High blood pressure, it's called the silent killer.
Okay.
Often there are no symptoms. So unless you're monitoring your blood pressure, unless you've had it checked, and unless you're not falsely reassured by guidelines that are based on treatment with medication, many people, in fact the majority of Americans, need to get their blood pressure lower.
Okay, now with blood pressure, how is it, I mean, who's doing, I guess every time you go to the doctor for a checkup, they do the blood pressure.
Right.
Are there a lot of people that are being misdiagnosed or overlooked, or do your values in the book, do you want their blood pressure lower than what I guess the standard is?
We spend several chapters in the book dealing with this. It's not just kind of a soundbite answer, but let me try to make it real simple. The problem is we've based our assessment of high blood pressure on where we need to kick in with medication therapy, okay? And that figure is probably somewhere around 140 to 150 systolic for the average person, over 90 diastolic. But the problem is the research indicates the lower you get your blood pressure, down to probably about 110 systolic, is where we need to be to keep the lowest risk of things like heart disease, stroke, kidney failure, blindness. And so what's happening is the doctor pats you on the back, hey, your blood pressure is 135 over 85. Well, yeah, it's better than the guy he just saw, or the guy I just saw. I see patients all the time, 170, 180 over 100.
But when I see, like, for example, when I looked up my age knowing I'm going to interview you, I think it said like 130 is the high number and 85 is the low number. I'd be okay, or 70, I think. But you don't like those numbers?
I don't like those numbers because that's not what the data shows. But the data shows if you start treating with medication a blood pressure of 130 over 80, you shouldn't be taking medicine. You see, so we're so medication oriented that we're telling people your blood pressure is fine because you don't need drugs. I'm saying, yeah, I'm not going to put you on drugs either, but you need to get serious about getting that blood pressure lower if you want to maintain cognitive function, if you want to maintain your vision as long as possible.
But those drugs work, though. They do lower the blood pressure.
Oh, they do. But what the research shows, we've got a beautiful graph in the book. You look at what happens once you get to about 130 systolic with medication, the average person starts having more problems, greater mortality, by ramping the medicines up to get the blood pressure lower.
What are some of their side effects?
Some of the side effects of common medication: cough, frequent urination, low energy level, depression, sexual problems, all from common blood pressure drugs. So I'm saying, no, we're not trying to get more people on medication. We're saying we all got to get serious as a country, as a world, about what we can do naturally to get our blood pressure down.
So it's somebody that they're 150 over 90 or something. 30 days to natural blood, you're saying with nutrition.
With nutrition, with proper exercise, with judicious use of supplements, avoiding things that adversely impact your blood pressure, you can get those numbers down. The average person can make dramatic strides, and I've seen it over the years.
Give me an example of some.
I'll tell you about Ron, still a good friend of mine, went through a program I used to work with, an intensive lifestyle program. Ron basically, numbers, 180, 200 systolic within about a week. On this kind of a program like we feature in the No Pressure Solution, 30 Days to Natural Blood Pressure, Ron's numbers are 120, 130. I just saw him recently. He's kept his weight off. He lost something like 100 pounds over the course, not just of a week, but over the course of some months following that. And he's still off all his blood pressure medications, running in the 120s. His story's in the book.
Okay, so now when people die of sudden cardiac death, or they have stroke, statistically, are these people usually have high blood pressure?
High blood pressure is a major risk factor for both stroke and heart attack.
So blood pressure and these medications. Now, what happens if somebody goes to you? Because I know, we should mention, you wrote the book. You said you don't really take on a lot of new patients.
No, I've got
because you work
very busy
underserved.
practice. Yeah, I'm working in an underserved population in Lake County, California.
And you lecture on this topic all over the place?
I lecture all over the country, all over the world. We'll be in Eastern Europe in a month lecturing there. In Vienna, Austria, I'll be there. So, I mean, people are interested in the topic worldwide. And in fact, there's a Czech edition of the book coming out. That's why we're going to be there in Prague.
So if I talk to a traditional mainstream, so-called mainstream medical doctor, they say, Randy, you can't, because I did, knowing you're coming on the thing, because Randy, you can't really lower blood pressure with just nutrition. Have you ever heard that before, by the way?
I haven't heard it from someone who's read the book.
Okay.
And there's a lot of physicians, even on Amazon. I was just looking at a review from a physician saying, hey, this stuff is right on, and I've already got a relative, their blood pressure's down to normal on this regimen, so it works. But it's not just nutrition. I mean, we're looking at environment, we're looking at stress. I mean, it's a comprehensive program where we tackle blood pressure in 30 days.
So who should read this book? Like, who's it designed for?
Well,
who's it best for?
First of all, it's designed for the people who have high blood pressure. And the people that I've seen in my office, I remember one woman, Randy, some years ago, came in to me, first time. She'd already been to another doctor, diagnosed with high blood pressure, 6 drugs. She'd been on one after the other, kept having side effects, and she felt fine. Remember, it's a silent disease.
Okay.
So she comes into my office, and we have the privilege of sharing this information with her. We didn't have the book out then. So now we can just put a book in someone's hand. They don't have to come to see me in a clinic that's already too busy. They can go to Amazon, get the book, and they can put these into practice themselves.
Now, some doctors, now like you say, you're working in an underserved community, taking insurance, things like that. You didn't have the luxury of being able to spend an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours with a patient. So this book, oftentimes you just say, read the book?
That's right. It goes home with them. I just had a woman in the office just this week, and she was saying, Dr. DeRose, I've read the whole book. In fact, we had one person got real excited about one of the supplements we mentioned in the book and said, called my nurse, said, I'm dizzy. That's a sign that the blood pressure is going down a lot. And just to kind of cut right to the chase, it was coenzyme Q10. A lot of research on that supplement. We have a whole chapter on different supplements that lower blood pressure. So I said, that's working. Back off the CoQ10. She shouldn't be taking that much.
Now, medical doctors in school, cardiologists in school, not a lot of training about CoQ10? Because I know it's now starting to pop up.
Yeah, not a lot of training about it. Not when I was, I'm from, I didn't just come out of medical school yesterday.
Right.
So, hopefully they're integrating more of this today. And I know there are people in conventional medical circles who are saying, we got to look at these things. They work. And we have a study. We talked about coenzyme Q10. It's what we call a meta-analysis. We featured in the book. And they've looked at multiple studies on coenzyme Q10, lowering blood pressure on average 10, 15 points systolic just with that one supplement.
Men and women over 40, 50, I mean, who should take it? At what point should you take it?
Well, here's the deal. And I've worked with lifestyle therapies, Randy, for years. And what I tell people is there is no supplement as powerful as lifestyle. I mean, honestly, we don't have high blood pressure because we don't have coenzyme Q10 in the water supply. I mean, that's not the solution, right?
Yeah, okay,
right?
okay.
It's because of our lifestyle. But these adjunctive things can help because some of us got dealt a bad hand in our genetics or early life history. We may want to talk about that at some point.
Tell me this, for people watching this, if you could dummy this down your best way, what is blood pressure? I mean, what's causing the height in blood pressure?
Great question. First of all, what is it, okay? What is it? So your heart is beating roughly, if we make it simple, about once every second. That would be 60 beats per minute. That's a little on the lower end of the normal range. So if your heart is beating 60 beats per minute, that's once a second. Now, I often ask my audiences when I'm giving a lecture, I said, does your heart ever rest? And I get two answers. Some people say no, 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 and other people say yes, and I say you're both right. And the reason I can say that is the heart doesn't rest like for 8 hours like you do at night, but what does it do? It rests for twice as long as it beats. So the heart will beat, if it's 60 beats a minute, 1 beat per second, the heart will beat for 1/3 of a second, and then it will rest for 2/3 of a second.
Okay.
When the heart beats, that surge of pressure that comes out, that's what we call the systolic pressure. That's the force that's propelling blood through the arteries, goes up to your brain, goes down through your hands, through your whole body system. As a surge of pressure generated by the heart. We call it systolic blood pressure. Then the heart rests for that 2/3 of a second. And during that rest, the heart's going to fall, the blood pressure in the blood vessels is going to fall down to a lower level. That lowest level that it reaches before the heart pumps out again is what we call the diastolic blood pressure. So it's fluctuating. The pressure in your arteries, in the tubes that are carrying your nutrients, your oxygen to your body, it's fluctuating between that high systolic number and the low diastolic number.
So if you have high blood pressure, then what's happening?
What's happening is the heart is generating more pressure than is optimal for your body. And I use the analogy. Randy, if I were to walk over you and hit you in your shoulder, what do you think? It would cause permanent damage to you?
No.
So you're not impressed with my physique, huh?
Okay.
Okay, no, you're right. I probably couldn't.
Yeah.
But how about if I kept hitting you in the arm?
Yeah, it's going to hurt.
Exactly right. It's going to cause damage, and that's what high blood pressure is doing. It's pounding the organs. It's pounding the filtering
So you're
units of
wearing out
kidneys.
your heart?
It's wearing out the heart. That's right. Because that blood pressure is being disseminated throughout the whole body. Your brain, your kidneys, your eyes, and your body cannot stand that pounding for 60 years.
So how did you stumble onto this blood pressure thing as your passion?
Well, it's one of my passions, and because the patients walking through internal medicine practices, I have boards in internal medicine and preventive medicine. And so the people that walk through our doors, they often have high blood pressure numbers. And my patients with diabetes, they often have high blood pressure.
How do you figure out that through nutrition alone that you can lower it?
Well, remember, it's not nutrition alone.
Okay,
It's
and supplements?
Yeah, and supplements and lifestyle and controlling stress. So it's a social support, huge thing. So we talk about all these areas. Really, I'll tell you the bottom line, Randy. I worked in conventional settings like other doctors. I've also worked in places where we work intensively with people.
Okay.
And when we work intensively with people in lifestyle centers, we find that you come into an environment of healing, things happen quick. Blood pressure comes down, blood sugar comes down, and that was what really got me so excited about the power of simple lifestyle changes.
Okay, good. We're going to take a quick break. But final message. Somebody's watching this, okay, and they do what I did before you came here. I looked my age and what my blood pressure was supposed to be. You're saying maybe the number should be like 10, 15 lower than what the so-called normal is. Is that what they do? That means...
Well, really,
you get your blood pressure checked, and you should be how much less than what the value.
We're saying the research shows somewhere around 110 systolic is where you have the lowest risk. It doesn't matter,
what your age.
No matter what your age is.
So 110 is a high number, and then the low number is what?
And about 70. Yeah.
What about your blood pressure?
It's lower than that.
Is it lower than all your friends?
Well, I don't know about all my friends. We don't make them have their blood pressure checked when they come visit.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come right back. And by the way, how do they get your book?
Amazon is the simplest place.
And do they put in your name, Dr. DeRose?
They can put DeRose, blood pressure, it'll come right up.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
You're watching The Wellness Hour. I'm Randy Alvarez. We'll be right back.
Okay, lowering blood pressure naturally. Now, I want you to understand that in the introduction to the book, he's going to do through all the videos, and I'm giving him that because this is something that I think is so important. We're going to talk a little bit about each of the things that he's discussing, but in future seminars, we're going to get into more specifics on lifestyle changes, and we're going to include in that then Alzheimer's, arthritis, high cholesterol, and diabetes, and any other chronic condition, because they're all lumped together now, okay? And we are going to get more specific, though. We will target it as high blood pressure, and we'll talk about the others. Okay, increased activity. He's already talked about that. Exercise is so important. We will talk later about how much exercise, how often, okay? And I think some of you already know. Lose weight if you're overweight. and we'll give you those BMI numbers. And that's something else that we're going to start doing, by the way, at the fairgrounds as soon as we can get those scales in, checking that for people. Cut back on sugar and refined carbohydrates. And we'll give you reasons for all of that. Eat more potassium. Why is potassium so important and sodium isn't? You have any idea? Because we're over-salting everything today, and we're not getting enough of potassium. So we need to get that reversed, because potassium is so vital for the heart and for the brain. Eat less processed foods. In fact, if you can just cut them down to almost zero, you'll be better off. We already talked about smoking. Reduce that stress. Relax. We have a whole seminar we're going to do on nothing but how to relax, how to decrease your stress, how to de-stress your system. I hope that you can come to that. Meditation is very good. When I'm talking meditate, I don't mean yoga or something where I sit and go, type of thing. I'm talking about you meditate on God's word. You study and you pray to God. That's meditation, because it takes you out of this world and it puts you into heavenly courts. And God is wanting you, by the way, above all things, he says what? I want you to what? Prosper and be in good health. Okay? And we want the same thing. Now, I threw this one in for one of our members of our audience here, number 10. You laughing, right? 70% plus. Yeah, cocoa, yeah. And we'll tell you reasons for that too. Not today, we don't have the time, okay. Well, if you're like me, you take a bar and you just start eating on it, and before you know it, it's gone. No, that's not good. It's called. Well, they have the chocolate. They have the dark chocolate in a candy bar. What's the word? Moderation in all things, right? Okay. All right. Get plenty of restful sleep. And I had to put this one in there for the rest of you that don't like garlic. Eat garlic. I'll tell you, there are some new things on garlic that's going to be very surprising to you. I'm going to bring that out too. It's great stuff, trust me, for a lot of things, diabetes and cholesterol. People that have had stroke is very excellent. We give reasons for that. And eat healthy, high-protein foods. And when I say healthy, high-protein foods, I mean legumes, nuts, seeds, this type of thing, folks. Okay. Take herbs that will help lower blood pressure. We'll talk about that a little bit too as we get into this. All right. Okay, this one video now is on, he continues talking about lowering, this is the second video on lowering this blood pressure naturally.
You're watching the Wellness Hour, news that makes you healthier. Today's topic, lowering your blood pressure naturally. With us on the show, we have board-certified internist, board-certified also in preventive medicine, Dr. DeRose. Dr. DeRose, welcome to the program.
It's great to be here, Randy.
So your book, 30 Days to Natural Blood Pressure Control, the No Pressure Solution. So you believe you can lower blood pressure naturally without medication?
Oh, I don't just believe it. I've seen it time and time again.
You see it in your practice all the time?
Yeah. Well, I don't see it in my practice all the time today because I'm working with people who I'm trying to help them see this vision. I'm in a new practice setting over the last couple of years. We're trying to cast the vision, but it's challenging. A lot of people, they think the way to handle blood pressure is with conventional medications. And it's an uphill battle. It's an uphill battle to help people see what we're trying to communicate.
Because you lecture to other medical doctors.
Oh yeah, I gave last year, 6-hour CME program out on the East Coast.
That's continuing medical education.
Okay. Physicians, nurses, they're all there listening to me talk about natural strategies for blood pressure. So physicians are interested, nurse practitioners are interested because we've got an epidemic in America of high blood pressure.
Now, so if they follow the protocol in your book, you're saying 30 days?
30 days.
They'll see a dramatic difference?
The average person sees a dramatic difference. If they really get serious and could read the whole book overnight, they could see it even shorter. But it's a long book. And so we walk people through a 1-month program.
Okay, now let's talk a little bit about, on this segment, on nutrition and supplements, but nutrition, of how to lower it through nutrition.
Nutrition is fascinating, Randy. And one of the most fascinating studies, fairly recently, there's something called the Adventist Health Study. It comes out of California, but it's a nationwide study of nearly 90,000 individuals. Some people have heard of Seventh-day Adventists. They have recommended for years eating more plant foods. But it's not a requirement of the church. So there's people in that church group that are eating just like the average American. There's others that are just eating fish with their vegetables and things. Others are what we call lacto-ovo vegetarians, and there's some that are vegans. And they actually looked at their diets and whether it made a difference in blood pressure and diabetes. In fact, tell you a true story.
Okay.
I was showing a study based on the Adventist Health Study, a graph based on that study, at a lecture of mine. 6 months later, I saw a patient walking up through a mall or something. Dr. DeRose, I went to your lecture, it changed my life.
Okay.
And this would be a time where you could get a little proud, but I couldn't, because the next thing he said to me was, but it was nothing you said. And I'm thinking, came to my lecture, changed his life. It was that graph. It was the graph from this study. He said it changed his life. Because what it was, Randy, it was a stair step. The more animal products you were eating, the higher the blood pressure, the higher the diabetes. As you go down, get rid of the red meat, your blood pressure comes lower. As you get rid of the fish, it comes lower. As you get rid of the dairy products, it comes lower. Dr. Neil Barnard and a colleague, they actually did a meta-analysis, some 80 studies looking at this. And across the board, whether your blood pressure is, quote, normal or whether it's high, if you get rid of more of the animal products and substitute plant products, your blood pressure goes down.
It's that simple.
It's that simple.
And you've seen it over and over
And I've seen it over and over. And here's the interesting thing. A lot of people say, why? Well, why would that do it? Most people don't realize that the most nutrient-dense foods, highest in magnesium per calorie, highest in calcium per calorie, it's not dairy, it's plant foods. So when you eat more of these plant foods, you get more calcium, more potassium, more magnesium, but it's not just that. This really blew me away. Some years ago, I was asked to give a series of video presentations on high blood pressure before we even came out with the book. So I'm doing this filming. And as I'm doing the research for this series, I start looking even more deeply into these plant foods. I've been using them. My patients are getting off their blood pressure medicines, they're getting off their diabetes medicines, but I'm looking into it because I know professionals are going to be watching this, they're going to want to say why. Okay. And the amazing thing that I found out in plant foods, there's something called ACE inhibitory compounds. Now the average person says, well, yeah, ACE inhibitory compounds. These are some of the most powerful drug compounds today. So if someone's taking lisinopril or Prinavil or Trindelapril, there's all these medications that end in pril. These are ACE inhibitors. These ACE inhibitors
are given to people with high blood pressure.
They're given medications that have these ACE inhibitors in them. What the research now shows is that plant foods, many plant foods, we have a list in the book of like 20 of them that have ACE inhibitory compounds in the plant foods. So you're eating, when you take those plant products, when you're eating buckwheat and broccoli and mushrooms, these are some of them that have these ACE inhibitors, when you're eating those, you're actually taking in small amounts drugs, really, that lower your blood pressure. Now you're probably, if you're like many of my audiences, Randy, you're asking a question right now. You're thinking, boy, I better not eat too much broccoli and mushrooms because I could, my blood pressure would go too low. Doesn't happen. I've never seen anyone, they've never called me, Dr. DeRose, it's, Mrs. Jones in the intensive care unit, and she said she read your book and she was eating all kinds of broccoli and garlic and mushrooms. No, you don't end up in shock by eating a healthy diet.
So the diet, well, let me ask you this. Because I had an internist one time on the show tell me, Randy, the way medicine works, if you're on a drug, you tend to stay there forever. Everybody's afraid to take you off it, especially, he said, blood pressure medications. Because if something happens to you, you're the doctor that took them off blood pressure medications. So how do you even find a doctor that even grabs this concept, since you're not that accessible? Do they wean themselves off on their own? Do you have protocols for weaning themselves off? Is it cold turkey? What is it?
No, very interesting question and very important question. What's happening today is physicians are being educated not just on what we used to talk about is step care therapy. That means you step up the blood pressure drugs. Now they're talking, this is in conventional medical circles, step down therapy. Because what's happening is we're ending up with a population of people, and I see them. People that I hadn't seen before or that other people put on blood pressure medicines, they walk into my office and their blood pressure is 100/60. It's too low. They say, Grandma, whenever she gets up, she gets lightheaded. She's over-medicated. And so doctors are becoming aware of this, and they realize it. So I tell people, if you're going to get on this program, talk with your doctor. And then we have a protocol where you're monitoring your own blood pressure and you're keeping in touch with your physician. You're letting them know if your blood pressure is coming down.
If it was your patient, are you able to cold turkey take them off if they follow your nutritional and lifestyle
Some of the
protocol?
medications you cannot stop cold turkey, and we emphasize that in the book. Because some of them, you stop at cold turkey and you'll get what we call rebound hypertension. Your blood pressure will go up higher than it ever was before.
And this is outlined in the book?
It's outlined in the book.
Okay.
We mentioned one of the main drugs that does that is something called clonidine. Yeah, very dangerous to stop abruptly.
Okay, so nutrition. So you put people on a plant-based diet?
We put them on it. We move them in that direction. We don't say you got to be a total vegetarian, but the more they eat of plant foods, the lower their blood pressure will tend to be. We also still believe the sound data that's out there about sodium. I know there's a lot of naysayers saying, well, you can eat all the salt you want, it doesn't matter. You look at the data, we're eating too much salt as a nation. We've got to decrease it. The New England Journal of Medicine looked at this less than a decade ago. They looked at the best data. They said if we as Americans, we're taking on average about a teaspoon and a half of salt a day. That's the average intake. If we just cut that a half teaspoon, we'd save tens of thousands of lives each year from stroke and heart attack.
So no salt, or very little salt. Just naturally occurring salt in your food?
You know what?
No
Randy,
sea
it's
salt?
easier than that. It's easier than that.
Okay.
It's stop eating so much processed and restaurant foods. And if you're going to do that, look at the label. If there's more sodium than calories in the food, stay away from it. So if there's 200 calories in a serving of this item, and it's got 400 milligrams of sodium, that's a high sodium food. You're not going to eat it. Eat the one, 200 calories, 150 milligrams of sodium, that's fine. Have that.
Okay, so sodium drives up.
Sodium drives up blood pressure, and it causes us to retain more fluid as well.
Is that the reason why it's
That's part of the mechanism. There's probably a lot more to it, because one of the interesting things that happens when you raise your sodium intake, not only does your body have to hold on to more water, but it affects these various hormones that are regulating blood pressure and interacting with the kidneys.
Okay, now for those people that are watching this and they're not going to become a complete vegan, right?
Right.
But they're going to have protein. Does the book outline recommendations for best protein sources?
Act-
And if so, what are they?
Actually, we highlight a number of these ideal protein sources. They're in the book. We talk about things like chickpeas. We talk about the bean family in general.
But what about any meats, like for people like a chicken or grass-fed beef or fish?
You know, I'll tell you, very simple answer. We've got a whole chapter on there that speaks about pressors, things that raise blood pressure. And here's a simple answer when you talk about any protein source. We are living in a contaminated world.
Okay.
The higher you move up on the food chain, the higher those toxins become concentrated. So simple answer, you're better off eating the small fish that's eating the phytoplankton than eating the big fish that's been living for many years and has eaten other fish in the process.
So small fish, like a sardine or whatever.
Yeah, the smaller.
Nobody likes sardines.
Yeah, but
That's
the
a bad
shorter,
example.
the shorter the lived, the animal or the creature, and the more naturally it's raised without, artificial chemicals and stuff, the better off the decision's going to be.
Okay, so in 30 days, changing their diet, and you say lifestyle, like lowering your stress, sleeping more, things like that.
Rest is huge. Let me just mention something interesting. We're driving ourselves as a population, most of us. We're not getting enough sleep. When you or I don't get enough sleep, Randy, our body has to ramp up stress hormone levels so we can keep going. If our body can't do it, we're reaching for the caffeine, and the caffeine ramps up those hormones. What happens when those stress hormones go up? Your blood pressure goes up, your blood sugar goes up. So, it's not rocket science. When you start connecting the dots, people read through the book, they say, it's easy. You got all these stories, we got over 100 graphs and tables. Yeah, it's a comprehensive book, but a lot of stories from patients, real life stuff, it really works and it really makes a difference.
Somebody wants to get your book, what's the best way? They go to your website?
They can go to my website, that's compasshealth.net, or they can go right to Amazon and go right there.
They just...
Okay, here's some foods that will help. You heard what he said about ACE inhibitors, right? We're going to talk a little bit about that today because some of you are saying, what in the world is an ACE inhibitor? But just keep that in mind that when you have, there's so many drugs on the market that are ACE inhibitors. These foods that are listed here, most of them do affect that, some more specifically than others. When we talked about things like reversing Alzheimer's, which was one of our programs we did, We had those 8 programs. We have, 6 programs. Now we had one on reversing diabetes. What was the one food that they always talked about? Green leafy vegetables. And the green leafy vegetables are what? Kale, spinach. What else? Broccoli. Exactly. You mentioned broccoli. Okay. The berries, red beets, oatmeal, all oats, bananas, flax seeds, chia seeds, watermelon. And watermelon has some other interesting things in it as well, as far as reducing blood pressure, and celery as well. You can read those. And I also put dark chocolate in there again for you. Okay. But if you just look at these, you can see that primarily I didn't put, there's no meat byproducts mentioned in here at all for this. But all of these foods help to lower, blood pressure. Now, you probably can't see this too well. I'm sorry that I couldn't get anything better than this, but I'll just kind of go over it with you, all right? This is the liver. The liver produces an enzyme. Whenever you, let's say that you eat salt, which is a dysfunction in your kidneys, and you start, getting the potassium and the sodium off balance. The liver will release this enzyme, and the kidneys release a product called renin, R-E-N-I-N. When it releases the renin, and this enzyme will attach to this, that. The renin, angiotensin, aldosterone cycle, right? Yeah. This is taught to everyone anymore. But this cycle, where you can't see it, but this is angiotensin 1 is formed. And then, all of a sudden, through the kidney as well as the lungs, you have this ACE, which is what? Converting enzyme. Angiotensin converting enzyme. That's the step that's the most dangerous, when it converts that angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2, because angiotensin 2 is a vasoconstrictor. It causes your vessels to constrict, putting a lot of pressure on your heart. But there is a whole raft of other things. Karen, you want to say something? Yes, sir, exactly right. She teaches nurses, so I can rely on her, right? But there's a whole raft of other things that happen, which we're not going to go into. But just that right there, that if you block that with an ACE inhibitor, like losartan, lisinopril, those are the ones that we talk about, because you and I both are on lisinopril, right? You're on losartan. Losartan, yeah. Lisinopril is the same thing. Yeah. And up until a few days ago, right? Exactly. But when we find out, the foods and the supplements that, again, do the same thing and do it just as effectively, what would be better to do? Eat the foods and the supplements, or take the meds? When we already said taking the meds itself really doesn't help you overall as far as the devastating events of stroke and heart attack. It really doesn't. If you try to get it too low, it's even worse. So it's better to do it with diet if you possibly can. Okay. Did that help? Okay, good, super. Now, foods, again, that are specific, these are the best, okay? I isolated those out as far as ACE inhibitory effects. These are the ones that he mentioned also. He mentioned buckwheat. There's 20 of them that he has in his book. These are the ones that were the highest on the list. And you notice something else comes up each time is pomegranate. You notice that? I tell you what, there are so many benefits to eating pomegranate, and very few of us really eat pomegranate, But they are so good for you. Yes, ma'am.
What does the pomegranate juice?
Well, I'm not one that really that says you need to drink a lot of juices because of the sugar, but that's one that if you're going to drink any kind of juice at all, it's probably the best one to drink because it's in there. Okay, because they grind up the areole, which is around the seed, which is the stuff we normally eat, and the seed as well, which you find that more of the ACE inhibitors are in the seed. And there's a raft of these in pomegranate, not just one. There's a whole bunch of them. So it's a very, very interesting fruit, to say the least. But these are the foods. Now, if you just stop and look at them just a minute and say, well, I don't know, can I put these in my diet? Whoops, sorry. Look at corn, rice. Yeah, well, you know, most of us eat some corn, some rice, usually during the week, don't we? All right, wheat germ is good, sunflower seeds. Now these, the mung beans, very few of us eat mung beans. Any of you eat mung beans? I love mung beans. Huh? Sprout them are good, yeah. And you get it in sprouts too, by the way, just so you know, okay? Soybeans, which, you know, everything is so controversial today. If you can find an organic soybean that's not GMO, it's great, right? Well, anyway. Grapes. These are the red grapes primarily. Spinach, again, we talk. And I want to say, again, we know broccoli in particular and spinach, you know, those two vegetables a lot of us don't like, but those are the ones really you need to learn how to eat them because they are so good for you with this. And that's that garlic again. And the garlic also has other benefits to it other than just ACE inhibition, okay? All right. The mushrooms. What mushrooms would you think? Any mushrooms. You're absolutely correct. They all have it. So you see the reishi, the shiitake, the button mushrooms, you know, and what? Portobellos. All of them had it in there, absolutely. Okay. All right. That help a little bit today? All right, good. Super, super. So you start adding these to your diet, right? Good, great. Okay, now he's going to talk a little bit about supplements.
You're watching the Wellness Hour, news that makes you healthier. I'm Randy Alvarez. Today's topic, supplements, natural supplements that you can take to lower your blood pressure naturally. With us, we have an expert on the topic. He's the author of 30 Days to Natural Blood Pressure Control, the No Pressure Solution, Dr. David DeRose. Dr. DeRose, welcome to the program.
Great to be with you, Randy.
Now, we've had you, this is a big topic. Nutrition, lifestyle, rest, stress reduction, etc., but specifically on this segment, supplements. You say there are supplements that can help lower blood pressure.
What we did when we were writing the book, we said, let's look what's out there. Because there's dozens of supplements that are purported to help lower blood pressure. We said, let's see what the research is saying that expert groups are saying help lower blood pressure. Let's look at Bastyr University, see what their naturopathic providers are doing. Study is out. What kind of supplements were they using? We looked at other comprehensive looks at what's being done out there, and we find some common denominators. One of them that showed up on every list was coenzyme Q10.
Okay. Now there's several types, I guess, or a couple types of coenzyme Q10.
Yeah,
one for older people, one for younger people, or
there's a
something
number of
like
different
that?
formulations. We don't need to go into all the nuances, but basically, coenzyme Q10 has come into the spotlight for a number of reasons. First of all, there's now very convincing research in the medical literature that coenzyme Q10 has blood pressure lowering properties. And maybe my co-authors of the book are going to put a gag order on me because, no, it's a true story.
Okay.
I was actually in a public venue and someone said, well, Dr. DeRose, you know, my blood pressure is really high. I said, well, you need to get the book. They said, well, what can I do right away? I said, use, you know, coenzyme Q10. I saw this guy like a couple months later and he said, Dr. DeRose, my blood pressure is normal. I started taking the coenzyme Q10. I said, did you buy the book? He said, no. So that's why I'm saying, I mean, the book is more than just a single supplement, but coenzyme Q10 is very powerful. On average, it can lower systolic numbers some 10 to 15 points, okay? And, you know, we have...
So you're big on CoQ10. Because the Lipitor crowd, the statin crowd that takes these, in the very little research I've done, that these can, you know, interfere with your ability to create CoQ10.
You're exactly right. So people that are on statin drugs,
for those people?
they should be on CoQ10 as well, even if their blood
Or if
pressure
they
is
say,
normal.
my doctor, I have a friend of mine. He said, my doctor's never told me CoQ10. And he's on Lipitor.
Well, we're trying to get the message out there, okay? We're trying to get the
Okay.
message out there. So, because it does. The statin drugs not only interfere with cholesterol production, but also with coenzyme Q10 production.
So what's another supplement that we should look at?
Let me tell you a fascinating story, because it comes to the statins, okay? I see patients who want to get off statins, and you know, in medical circles today, I mean, that's you're talking about, you know, treading on very dangerous ground. That's dangerous
Because
ground.
they love
maybe.
statins.
Not only do they love statins, there's a lot of research that suggests for the average person this is helping them. So we're really pushing these drugs in the medical community. But I see patients, whether it's real or not, there's data on this. You know, they're having muscle problems from the statins. They're feeling weak. Their energy level's low. I had a patient some years ago, and he couldn't walk. He said, you know, it's got to be from the statins. And people were reassuring him, checking his, blood muscle enzyme, muscle enzymes in the blood, and they seemed to be good. But when the guy came off his statins, he was back to walking fine. But here's the problem. There's research showing if you abruptly stop statins, it can increase your risk of a stroke. So we started looking at this. And one of the things that's involved in this is something called L-arginine and nitric oxide. It's a blood vessel relaxing compound. The nitric oxide is. It's actually made from an amino acid, a protein building block that is called L-arginine. And so
that's supplement number 2 you recommend.
That's supplement number 2. So we're talking about L-arginine. We got interested in it because of this relationship with statins and people coming off them, but there's actually good data that L-arginine also can lower blood pressure.
And these are not these are not expensive
no,
supplements.
No, they're not.
Right?
And we don't sell supplements. So you don't go to my website, Dr. DeRosa's L-arginine, or we don't do that, okay? We're trying to help people see the big picture. It's not a supplement-driven story, though. So the supplements
and that's why this segment is literally about the supplements.
Right.
And I realize that people just tuning in that there's a lot about nutrition, stress reduction, everything else.
Exactly.
That's why I'm asking you specifically about this.
Right.
Okay, so L-arginine. What's another good one?
Another one that I really like, and in fact, I'll be honest with you, one of my co-authors, Dr. Greg Steinke, he's also double boarded. He's preventive medicine and family practice. He really liked hibiscus tea, and he was using that with his patients and seeing remarkable results. There's great data on hibiscus tea and its blood pressure lowering effects. Just 3 times a day, hibiscus tea can lower your blood pressure 6 or 8 points.
How? What's the mechanism? Or do you even know the mechanism?
To be honest with you, the hibiscus tea, that's one I don't right off know the mechanism on. Because a lot of these things, it may be these ACE inhibitory compounds we spoke about in a previous show. It may have to do with the, being rich in some of these micronutrients that have blood pressure lowering properties. But often, sometimes, here's the data. They've shown empirically that this thing works, and then we're kind of scratching our head exactly why. Here's another one, and this kind of brings back the hibiscus into the story, and that is probiotics. Everybody's talking today about the microbiome, the stuff that lives in your gut. Well, believe it or not, if you improve your gut flora with healthy germs, with probiotics, you lower your blood pressure as well. So why I mention it is some of these plants have prebiotics. We know it's true of peanuts, for example. They have prebiotics, especially peanuts without the skin. Interestingly, that actually helps feed the growth of better bacteria. It's true of garlic, okay? So you're not taking the germs, and maybe I shouldn't use the word germs, but the healthy bacteria. You're not ingesting those, but you're taking things that are precursors that feed the good bacteria in the gut. Hibiscus may be doing that too. So sometimes we don't know all.
So it's these phytonutrients that you guys don't even know these chemical compounds,
some of this
how
stuff,
good they really are.
That's right. And I love this. I find it so amusing. We talk about these phytochemicals, okay? These plant chemicals. And I was reading a paper some years ago, and it said, we've identified, this many thousand of them, and we estimate that there are 20,000 more yet to be discovered. I said, well, how can you estimate how many haven't been discovered, okay? But the point is, we just keep learning more and more about these, and so I hate to say, well, here's why hibiscus works. First of all, I don't know all the, the intricacies of that particular remedy, but we may find out something that we're not even aware of in that plant product is a powerful
Give us another one. Is there, so CoQ10, L-arginine, hibiscus tea.
We've talked about the probiotics. But we talk a lot in the book about several other things too. Melatonin, vitamin D, and omega-3 fats. All of them with some pretty convincing connections with blood pressure.
Okay, so combined with the way you talk about eating in here, and for people that haven't seen the other segments, you've seen dramatic results where people that were on blood pressure medications are off.
Oh no, it's remarkable. It's remarkable, and it's not a panacea, okay? And so it's not every single person can go off every single medication. Randy.
Well, why don't you tell me this, without being a medical doctor for just a moment.
Sure.
Are you convinced in your mind that because I realize transitioning to eat this way, if they follow this protocol over time, plant-based diet, take some supplements, handle their stress, get some sleep, drink clean water, stay away from plastic bottles, whatever, right?
Okay.
Are you convinced that everybody's blood pressure eventually will get under control?
I'm not convinced everyone's blood pressure will get under control.
Most?
Okay? Most, yeah, but here's what we know, and I'll just tell you this. We know that what happens in the womb actually programs you later in life to things like heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure. If your mother was stressed during about 26 weeks to 32 weeks of gestation during the pregnancy, she's extremely stressed, they've actually, autopsy studies, you can have half the number of kidney filtering units that you should have.
Okay.
And when that happens,
Interesting.
your blood pressure has to be higher. The kidney is one of the organs that govern your blood pressures. You're never going to get your
that
blood
right?
pressure down to 110/70, even on an optimal lifestyle, but we can get you down to maybe 1 medicine instead of 5. I had a patient once who came to me on 10 different drugs, all of which were lowering his blood pressure.
Would you say that blood pressure, if you had it is probably more important to keep that lower than worrying about your cholesterol all the time?
Let's put it this way. I say they're both huge. Okay, cholesterol is a real risk factor,
All right.
and I don't want to minimize it, but blood pressure is huge. And the thing is, a lot of us, I think, have gotten a bit complacent with what is optimal because we're so focused on medication treatment. I'm not going to put someone on a drug to get their blood pressure down from 140 to 110, but if they can get it down naturally, the data is very clear. You dramatically decrease the risk of a heart attack and a stroke by moving at those 30 points lower.
Now, to throw those numbers, somebody's watching this at home, the numbers ideal in your opinion, no matter how old you are, what you weigh, how tall you are what?
If everyone could get their blood pressure down to 110 systolic and 70 diastolic, that would be ideal. But we're not going to do it with medication. Because if you drop it with medication that low, you're being over-medicated.
So if I'm 128 or 130 is my high number, and then my low number is 75 or 80, I'm okay according to the chart.
You're okay by the
chart.
charts.
You think it should be a little bit lower?
If you're on medication,
I'm not.
Okay, I'm going to say you're okay by a lot of the data. But if you're not on medication, like you just shared with us,
yes.
and thanks for being open,
All right.
okay, you could lower your risk further of heart attack and stroke, kidney failure, blindness, by getting those numbers down another 10 or 15
So if
points.
somebody, let's say, because a lot of the type A successful people, or mothers with 4 kids, and a working, they have like 145, 150. Are they? And you hear these terms like a time bomb, that it's very dangerous. Do you believe it's very dangerous to be walking around with 145, 150?
It's very dangerous, but not just for your heart and your stroke risk. It's also for your cognitive abilities. And we've got an epidemic of dementia in our country. If you're a high-performing person, you might be more concerned about keeping your mental edge than you are about, whether you die at,
so
85
high blood pressure will affect your memory?
Most definitely.
Your decision making? Really?
Yes, yes.
So do people report, after reading your book, following the protocol, that maybe they just want to lower those numbers, but they think clearer, they perform better?
When we work with a comprehensive program, people generally feel better, they function better, their energy level's better. All those things are part of the deal. And that's the wonderful thing. You're not having to choose, well, am I doing this for my blood pressure? Do I got to be on the diabetes diet, the cancer prevention diet? Because really, the optimal lifestyle, pretty similar. Pretty similar. So the supplements may differ, but the general lifestyle, nobody's telling you to sleep less if you want to avoid cancer, right?
Right.
Okay? And noise. We talk about noise in the book. Do you realize, Randy, if you want to lower your blood pressure 5 or 10 points, it may be as simple as just moving what side of the house your bedroom is on. Isn't that amazing?
So noise raises your blood pressure?
Noise, especially noise at night. So we have a chapter that talks about environment, and there's actually data. If you just move your bedroom to the side with less traffic, then, wherever your bedroom is today, you're going to lower your blood pressure.
Are there foods that trigger spikes in blood pressure?
Anything that raises stress hormones will boost your blood pressure. So there's foods. Coffee will tend to raise your blood pressure. Anything with caffeine, diet aids, a lot of these, energy drinks, definitely, they're going to raise your blood pressure.
Are they finding that just like with type 2 diabetes, the kids are getting younger and younger? Right? It's not adult onset, I guess, anymore. Are they finding that the kids are now getting younger and younger that have high blood pressure?
I don't know why this story came to mind, but in the book, we talk about some young kids that were found to have high blood pressure. In that particular example, it was because of heavy metal exposure. So, there's a lot of things in the environment. These kids were exposed to mercury, okay? So there's a bunch of things in our environment that can raise blood pressure. And we get more toxins in the environment. It's not just lifestyle. It's not just diet. It's things that some of us aren't even aware of. It's in our drinking water. There's arsenic. It's raising your blood pressure.
We're out of time. So if somebody wants to get your book, they get it on Amazon.
They can go to Amazon. That's the easiest place to go.
Just put in your name, Dr. DeRose, blood pressure. Watching the Wellness Hour, news that makes you healthier. We're talking about blood pressure medications that may be harmful to your health.
Okay. These are 10 of the supplements, okay? And these are some he did not mention. It's not in his book. The reason why I know them is because I worked on them. This one right here is Warwolfia serpentina. It's called Indian snake root in 1963, 64. When I was introduced to this, This was when they were looking for phytochemicals in plants to lower blood pressure. This herb was taken off the market because primarily it was competing with the company that I worked for. And the company coerced the FDA to take it off the market, the herb. You believe that? This happened 3 times in my career in pharmaceuticals. Rauwolfia serpentina will lower blood pressure, as good as Reserpine or Serpacil, which is the drug that came on the market back in 1955. And it does it without the side effects. It's got a little nasal stuffiness, and there were like 46 major side effects from the Reserpine or the Serpacil that was on the market, because what they did, they figured out the molecule, they extrapolated it out, they made it synthetically and patented it for 17 years to make $1 gazillion. And the drug and the herb was taken off the market. The herb is back on the market now. Okay. This one is probably one of the best of the herbs out there for lowering blood pressure. I am like Dr. DeRose. You use these until your diet situation can get your blood pressure down. These are just crutches only, and they're probably not something that you need to be on for long periods of time, unless it's something like CoQ10. Coenzyme Q10 is something that we do not get enough of. None of us do. And if any of you are on a cholesterol med, a statin drug, please get on this product. Tell your doctor. He'll put you on it if he's not mentioned it before. You've got to be on coenzyme Q10. Dr. DeRose did mention melatonin. This one is another one. It's like the CoQ10. It's PQQ. Cat's claw. L-citrulline. He mentioned L-arginine. Remember that? L-citrulline is a precursor. They find out that L-arginine can be degraded in the stomach and is not as absorbed, where L-citrulline, which converts into L-arginine, is a very good option to take. And it does do the same thing. It causes the nitrous oxide to come up, and it causes vasodilatation, or dilates your vessels. Very interesting stuff. Okay, vitamin D3, he mentioned. The folate would be the methyl folate instead of just the folic acid. And then he mentioned the omega-3 oils, which again is primarily from fish. But we find there's so much contaminants in fish now, not just mercury, but a whole bunch of other things. So that's the reason why I put up the flaxseed and the chia seed. I mentioned this before. It has an omega oil in it as well. The body will convert that omega oil into what your body needs as far as the omega oil is concerned.
Quantity of it,
Of the chia seeds?
of oils, the omega.
This omega, with most of them come in, I think it's 350 or 500 milligram as fish oil. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but how much a day?
It's whatever's in the bottle, and it'll be on the list, you know. But usually I would take it as they have it directed on the bottle. Usually I say once a day on that, 500 milligrams, okay? But those are a list of herbal compounds that you can go on. Now, I will share this with you, and listen to this. If you're on medication for blood pressure, and you go on CoQ10 and melatonin or any of these others, you better watch your blood pressure, because it can bottom down, because it will do it very naturally without the medication on board, and you're not going to have any trouble. But if you're on medication and you take one of these supplements, it may put your blood pressure too low. So watch it. Just take your pressure 3 times a day. Please do it.
When do you take that?
What?
At night?
What?
Morning? I mean,
This?
they're going to lower it. I certainly take it in the morning, because I want, at night I would never know.
Well, the Rauwolfia, for instance, is TID. It's 3 times a day.
Oh, that's what that is.
Yeah, TID. Okay. This is once a day. CoQ10 is once a day. Melatonin is once a day usually.
Do you take it at night before you go to bed?
I take melatonin at night. The rest of them I take during the day. Yeah. Yeah. This again is L-citrulline is a TID 3 times a day. These are once a day. See, most of these are just daily dosages. Okay, you can take them once a day. Any questions on this? Yes, ma'am.
Does melatonin give you headache?
Headache? Some people.
Because that's 3 to 5 milligrams, but I tried 1 day or
1 milligram start with. Right, if you find you get a headache with it, yeah, yeah. And then you can increase the dosage of it. It does me the same way, so I started with 3, had a headache, dropped it to 2, didn't, went back to 3, and now I'm on 5 milligrams a day. Okay. All right, any other questions? Sorry.
We get a list of this stuff?
Say again?
We get a list of these?
I can get you a list. I can send it. Anybody that wants this, again, if you'll give me your email, I'll send it to you, okay? Huh? Though, no, not all of these are not in the book. No, no. Again, he doesn't mention Rauwolfia. He is an MD, and I can understand his position on this, but that is the best herb in the world for lowering blood pressure is Rauwolfia serpentina. No. All right, well, I can, that's the reason why I put that. You see right, number 4? That's the ones I take right there. I take magnesium too. Magnesium is a vasodilator, helps me sleep as well. It's a great product. I do not get enough magnesium.
I got my pillow, I can sleep anytime.
Well, it's not the only thing it does, though. Causes vasodilatation as well. Oh, okay. Any other questions? Yes?
Most doctors tell you that peanuts are not good for you, but here is that Dr. DeRose is saying peanuts, especially without the skin. I thought the skin, the red skins on the peanuts were very good for you, although most doctors say don't eat peanuts, they're not good.
Well, peanuts can be bad for some people, and the reason for it is because they're allergic to it. So doctors have just taken the position that peanuts are bad, and peanuts aren't bad for a lot of people. I mean, God said, you can't live by bread alone. You got to have a little peanut butter. That's what I've always said. I love peanut butter. I eat a lot of it too. I get the natural one. Well, again, there's a fungus in it, exactly, in the peanut. With the processing that they go through for peanut butter, there's a natural one by, Smucker's, one of those that makes a natural one. It's no fungus in it at all. The process they put it through now, okay? Don't worry about it. But some people, there are those that are out there that, will have a toxic effect, to that, yes. Ann?
My last one, are all plastic bottles bad for you?
I don't eat plastic, I don't know. I know what you're saying, Ann.
Water supplies, for the most part, it's all plastic.
Right. You got the phthalates in it, and you got the bisphenol, these types. You got those without all that stuff in it, but your PETs are usually the ones that are best for that. They don't have but the high density polyethylenes have that mess in it. Some of them don't. I'm going to just share this with you right now. We are building a farm. Some of you know this, big hydroponic farm. And we're going to be going with a global gap, which is a international certificate that you have to get for food safety. One of the things they mentioned that as far as the plastics, for anything, any of the water lines, we have to pay 3 times the amount of money for water lines because I can't use PVC. I've got to use a special type of water line so that it doesn't leach out those types of toxic materials, these high hydrocarbon compounds that are very, very carcinogenic. And you're going to talk up because I can't hear.
Either way, we're going to be sick, right? Because if you're saying now that the PVC lines are bad, all the homes that are being built today have the PVC lines on it because we're all
Yeah, right. The ones that they put in the houses today, no, they don't have that. No.
It's a CPVC, not PVC, but CPVC.
Right. So you have to be careful with, with what you're using, and I appreciate that as far as bottled water and stuff like that, because all water comes in bottles. Plastic containers now.
That's why having the home filtration is
Yeah, it's true. Okay, any other questions on this?
Yes, Buster. Number 9, you mentioned the folic acid. Now, if a person does not have blood pressure, is it safe just to take the folic acid alone, like just a vitamin supplement?
Well, the reason why that I don't tell people to take folic acid anymore, or folate, is because there's a condition that we've discovered, it's only been about 7 years, maybe 10 years now, that some people cannot convert it into the methylfolate, or the folate that actually is used by the body. So it can actually become toxic to some people. So the methylfolate bypasses that particular enzyme, or lack of enzyme that people have in their system. So that's the reason why I mentioned methylfolate. But again, that's only about, I think 40% of the population have this particular abnormality, genetic abnormality, where they cannot convert. Okay? All right. Any other questions? Okay. All right, now this last video is on blood pressure meds. I know we're a little past time. What he's talking about, it's kind of interesting how he finishes up here, okay?
You're watching the Wellness Hour, news that makes you healthier. We're talking about blood pressure medications that may be harmful to your health. According to my guest, and he knows a thing or two about this, he wrote 30 Days to Natural Blood Pressure Control, the no pressure solution. You can get it on Amazon. And he says you can lower it naturally without the medications. And he has patient after patient that has done this. With us, we have Dr. DeRose. Dr. DeRose?
Great to be
welcome back
with
to
you,
the program.
Randy.
We've talked to you. I know this is a big topic.
Huge.
But this segment, I really want to talk about what are the dangers. Let's say somebody's watching this, and maybe they're stubborn, right? Like, my doctor is a good doctor, and I'm on blood pressure medications because I'm worried about stroke and heart attack. What are the dangers of long-term use of these blood pressure lowering medications? And is there hope where most of these people could get off?
No, I mean, it's a great question because there's two ditches, okay? The one ditch is under treatment of high blood pressure. 50% of Americans with high blood pressure don't have their blood pressure adequately controlled. That's a problem. And if you ask me, should they be on medicine? Listen, I don't care what you do, you got to get your numbers down, okay? So at first, yes, if blood pressure medication is needed, and I put people on medicine, okay? If you
Blood
walk in,
pressure medication?
yes, if you
Okay.
walk in with a blood pressure of 250 over 110, I'm not going to say change your diet and get some rest. Okay? No, you're about to walk out and have a stroke.
Okay.
Okay? We're gonna put you on medication. So medication isn't evil, but the problem is, here's the other ditch. People are being overtreated, and here's the typical scenario, Randy.
All right.
And I see it in my office. Someone is coming in. I may have seen them several times already. I'm in a new practice setting, haven't been there a long time. But someone's been coming in, they're checking their blood pressure, maybe 150 over 90 every time they're in the office. But I'm listening to them, talking with them, and they say, I get out of bed, I'm lightheaded, I get dizzy, I fell yesterday, I blacked out. And I'm starting to think, what's their blood pressure at home? A lot of people, in fact, the majority of people, when they walk into the doctor's office, their blood pressure goes up, and it goes up significantly, and maybe 10, 20, 30 points.
Okay.
So I'm trying to get my patients, buy a blood pressure cuff, check your blood pressure at home, bring me the readings. Okay?
So the dizziness might be too low of blood pressure from their medications?
That's right.
You're kidding me.
That's right. So your blood pressure is 150 in the doctor's office, but at home it's running 110 over 70. Okay? Or it's 160 over 100 in the doctor's office. Says that's too high. I got to put you on another medicine.
So they're being over-medicated.
So they get over-medicated. So what we're trying to give the message out, and in the book we say you got to start checking. If you're serious about your blood pressure, you got to start checking it. Okay? It's not a black box where you say, well, Dr. DeRose said this, I take this. No, you got to be seeing what your numbers are doing. Because a lot of people don't know. I'm shocked by how many people have been taking blood pressure medicines for years and have never checked their blood pressure at home.
That's a good
Amazing.
point. So so everybody should, and these things are inexpensive. I mean, you could buy them under $20.
They're inexpensive. We've got a website in the book, independent, objective research testing on blood pressure cuffs, continuously updated. You can go there.
How much are they, by the way? I said $20, but I think
I mean, $50.
$50.
It just depends where you're buying them. Yeah, but the point is, you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars to get a decent blood pressure monitor.
And how often should you check it?
Well, if you're changing your lifestyle, we're recommending you check it 3 times a day. But I'm happy. I just had a patient in the office this week. They said, how many times do I check it? I said, I'd be happy. And they're not checking it